Hello everyone, a warm welcome to this webinar on the topic Empowering Local Manufacturing Through Vaccine Technology Transfer. My name is Clive Nyaribo, Project Coordinator for the Vaccine Workforce Development Program. I work closely with the project co-leads, Professor George Warimu and Marianne Munene. Before we get started, a few housekeeping matters. Kindly take note that this webinar is being recorded. Kindly feel free to use the chat option to share your questions during the presentation, and we'll address them during the Q&A session. We'll have a few open slots for the attendees to directly ask questions to the presenters. If your internet is stable, you can raise your hand using the available icon. Please note that AI note takers and automated transcription tools are not permitted in this session. Unauthorized ports will be removed. These are series of planned webinars with the goal of providing information on various topics in the field of vaccinology. This being run under the KEMRI-Wellcome Trust Research Program, which is a well-known health research unit of excellence. Over the years, we have excelled in the use of novel ideas and collaborations to achieve better health for Africa, while also developing African scientific leaders. Our vision of the program is to undertake cutting-edge and novel research relevant to national, regional, and global needs. The Vaccine Workforce Development Program is funded by the Gates Foundation and aims to expand the technical know-how and capability for sustainable end-to-end vaccine R&D and manufacturing in Africa through training and knowledge exchange activities in the vaccine ecosystem through a multidisciplinary and partnership approach. Reason why this is important is that Africa currently relies on vaccine imports and vaccine donations for up to 99% of its routine immunization needs. The Vaccine Workforce Development Program is investing in local talent and strengthening technical expertise, thus building manufacturing capability to improve vaccine access and reduce dependence. The Vaccine Workforce Development Program has 4 core initiatives. One, we have the Vaccinology School Engagement Program, where students from local secondary schools are engaged during open days and lab tours with career talks to spark the interest in vaccinology and careers within this field. 2, we have the vaccinology webinars like this one, where higher career scientists, graduate and undergraduate university students across the globe join webinars that provide information on various topics in the field of vaccinology. 3, we have the Vaccinology in Africa course, which is an annual master's level course that attracts participants from across the continent for strengthening theoretical knowledge on vaccinology. 4, we have biomanufacturing apprenticeships that provide hands-on training in various vaccine manufacturing facilities across the globe. Today, we are glad to have Dr. Eman Fares and Dr. Ahmad Ashraf, who will be discussing the topic Empowering Local Manufacturing Through Vaccine Technology Transfer. Eman Fares is a results-driven business development manager and technology transfer lead with over 20 years of experience in the pharmaceutical and vaccine industry. A pharmacist with a master's in quality management and a professional project management certificate, Eman brings over 20 years of dynamic experience in vaccine development and production. Her expertise spans the full vaccine life cycle from upstream and downstream processes to critical areas like technology transfer, licensing, and international business development. Throughout her career, Eman has effectively partnered with diverse global entities, successfully navigating complex vaccine technology transfer and licensing initiatives. She holds a profound grasp of the biological products and vaccine sector, having cultivated robust relationships across the global vaccine landscape. Eman shares extensive knowledge as an instructor in vaccine production-related courses, delivering practical and theoretical training on quality management systems in vaccine development, manufacturing, and technology transfer. She is also joined by Ashraf Ahmad. Ashraf Ahmad is a quality assurance leader in the biopharmaceutical industry, currently serving as a QA compliance senior section head at BioGeneric Pharma with a background in clinical pharmacy, especially in GMP compliance, integrated management systems, and the implementation of electronic quality management systems. He has led the successful certification of multiple ISO standards and played a key role in preparing facilities for regulatory approvals and international audits, including collaboration with WHO and other global partners. Ashraf has also contributed to major technology transfer projects in vaccine and biologics manufacturing, supporting the advancement of local and regional health capabilities. Passionate about quality, innovation, and capacity building, he has been actively involved in training programs and international initiatives aimed at strengthening manufacturing expertise across Africa. Over to you, Eman and Ashraf.
Eman, please open your mic.
Sorry. Thank you, Clive, for the kind introduction. It's a pleasure for me to be with you all today. I hope you will find the session informative and enjoyable. My colleague Ashraf and me designed this session to be an interactive role-playing session where every one of us will be representing one side of the coin. So Ashraf will be representing for the two main parts of the technology transfer. Ashraf will be representing the sending unit, and I will be representing the receiving unit for the technology transfer. So we hope we will try to give you an overview about the technology transfer process to understand what is the process, what is the role of every party, and also to how to effectively manage a technology transfer project from start to finish. But let we start, please. Ashraf, share the PowerPoint. Okay.
Sure. Before we start, also, Eman, let's say that we have a quiz in the chat box. So please try to solve it before starting. And then we will have it after our presentation to check if the points that we want to deliver is delivered.
Okay.
I will have the presentation view.
Please, yes. Thank you. Okay. So today our presentation will cover the following topics. We will understand what is technology transfer and when we need it, and who are the stakeholders for tech transfer. Also, we will understand more about the role of tech transfer in empowering the local manufacturing of vaccine in Africa. We will go through the elements of tech transfer and the types and models we can use for it, and also the models and framework for tech transfer, the project team, the responsibilities of sending unit and receiving unit, and also the tech transfer package and gap analysis for starting a tech transfer project. But first, let's understand more what is technology transfer. Simply, it's a formal process where we transfer all necessary information, knowledge, and support from one side to successfully manufacture or produce and evaluate transferred product, process, or analytical test method from receiving side. It's a logical procedure where the transferring of any process is together with transferring the documentation and the professional expertise between the development or the originating or the sending unit to a receiving unit. Simply, we have originating site and the receiving site. The originating site is the owner of the technology transfer or the owner of the know-how. And we have a receiving site in a process including the product and the process and all the procedures around sending this know-how from site to site. Okay. So one of the most famous quotes about the technology transfer is research transforms money into knowledge, and the technology transfer transforms knowledge into money. This is reflect how technology transfer is the bridge between the innovation process of a product or a vaccine to make it a tangible product and scalable, and to have a business case structured using this technology. So technology transfer is not a simple process, it's a complex one, requires careful planning, coordinating, and execution. And successful technology transfer should include clear IP management, effective collaboration between the stakeholders of the project, and regulatory compliance, commercialization strategies. It's also a collaboration requires different disciplines, including product and process development, the process itself, and project business and financial management, scientific expertise, IP and agreements, networking, and communications. When do we need the technology transfer? We have two main pathways for technology transfer. This is the most common ways. The first one is from a small organization to larger one. This pathway, for example, we have an R&D group or academia which have developed some product or vaccine and looking for a commercial partner for large scale up for this product. Or we have a small startup company with a very limited capacity, but they own the know-how for a production for product or vaccine, and looking for contract manufacturing organization for a scale up for their product. This is the first example. The other one is a larger organization looking for a smaller one. For example, we have an established manufacturer looking for external partner to enter a new market or new geography, and this is the most common example we have now in Africa. So we have the global manufacturer in Europe, and they are looking to open new markets in Africa. So they are looking for a smaller partner who can introduce their product, manufacture and introduce their product to the African market. Also, we have another example, which is a well-established, big established manufacturer, but they have new internal facility. So technology transfer is not only external partners, it may happen inside the same organization. So if we have an old facility and we established a new one to transfer the product from this facility to the other, this is considered a technology transfer product. Not only having a new facility, but also inside the same facility, we can have a process transfer. So if we have a critical change, we need to have a technology transfer. So for process change, the main changes like scaling up our production capacity, like changing the technology we use, like using stainless steel bioreactor, but now we are moving for single-use bioreactors. We need to do a technology transfer process inside the facility. Also, if we are changing some materials, or as I mentioned before, initiating a new introduction of new GMP facility, or moving one product from our development department, the R&D department, to the GMP manufacturing facility. At which phase we should go for vaccine manufacturing, or we could have a technology transfer. Actually, we can have a technology transfer at any phase of the phases of the vaccine development and the commercial or manufacturing and the commercialization. So we can have the technology transfer at development phase, or at the scale-up phase, or the commercialization phase. So we can have a product which is just in the early phases of drug discovery. We manufacture in very small scale. And while we are moving to the next preclinical and the clinical studies, we can have a technology transfer, collaborate with another party who can do this studies for us. So we can have it at the discovery phase, at the clinical phase, at the commercialization phase, and of course, as we mentioned, after commercialization, if we are looking for a new market or a new product to introduce to the market. Technology transfer, we have three famous models for the technology transfer. The first one is the bilateral technology transfer, and this is the most common one, where we have two or three or more stakeholders entering into agreement, and this agreement include one technology owner or know-how owner who developed or invent a product or a vaccine and is looking for, and another one who is a user or recipient looking to receive this technology and started to introduce it to his facility. This is the most common model for the technology transfer. But we also have two different models, which technology transfer platform and technology transfer hub. The technology transfer platform is a virtual space, including different stakeholders like consultant, experts, organizations, manufacturer, and researcher. This is just a virtual space where we facilitate having a partnership between different people. So through this virtual space, people can find each other, introduce their know-how and IP to each other, and they have agreement for a full technology transfer or part of like method of analysis or part of the tech transfer. On the other side, we have the technology transfer hub, which is a physical place that gathering different stakeholders, including the know-how owner, technical assistant, advisor, developers, inventors, researcher, manufacturer. This is a physical space, a tool or a system where we are trying. It's looking for to have a society benefit. So we are looking to make a bridge between the researcher and the manufacturer to have the product in the market at least. One of the famous examples for this technology transfer hub is the mRNA technology transfer hub by the WHO, located at Africa, and have different spokes from different African and Asian countries to receive the technology and start to implement and commercialize at their countries. So now we talked that we already, in the model, we mentioned a lot of stakeholders that could be involved in the technology transfer. We need now to go for the technology transfer holders. Who are the stakeholders groups? They different people involved in a technology transfer. Each one has his own role and codes and the resources needed to be involved in a technology transfer. Many people could be involved in a technology transfer process and have their own rules. These people include stakeholders group, always focusing in the technology itself, the product, and resources providing. So we have the technology producers like the R&D labs, the researchers in the universities, the state labs or the governmental labs, and we have the technology consumers. It's a private sector manufacturer or government agency looking for a technology to adapt. And also we have the product itself. Maybe we exceed the technology level. We are looking for a product. Some people developed a product like private sector manufacturer or distributor, and looking for some people looking for a consumer to take the technology and start to implement at their facility. So we have the product producers and the product consumers, which are the end users, the professional service, and the provider. And at the end, and the most important part, you cannot have a technology transfer only depending on the technical part. We should have the stakeholders who are managing the resources part and are responsible for the financial sector and also for the marketing and the commercialization of the product. So by the end, we now understand the technology transfer definition. We having two parties, but any one of the stakeholders involved in the technology transfer project should know the main goals for the tech transfer. The main goals that we all should focus on is complete know-how transfer or knowledge transfer to ensure the transferred process or product and knowledge is fully established at the receiving site so it can operate the process independently and effectively. We also need to be sure that the product will be produced at the sending site and the receiving site will be comparable to the product produced or invented at the sending unit. We should ensure the regulatory compliance. We should meet all the regulatory requirements for the transferred process. And we should, during the whole life cycles of technology transfer management, ensure that we manage, identify, and mitigate any risk through the life cycle of technology transfer or process transfer. So these are the main goals of technology transfer that we will plan and prepare and define the gaps to achieve the 4 goals by the end of the technology transfer project. So now I give you a small introductory about what is the technology transfer, what is the need for technology transfer, but we need to understand more about the role of this tech transfer in empowering our local manufacturing capacities locally here in Africa. So I will ask my colleague Ashraf to to tell us more why we need the tech transfer and what we expect from implementing technology transfer project in our countries or our continent.
Okay, so technology transfer actually plays a very important role in local manufacturing, because as we know, what happened in the pandemic the last couple of years, we started panicking whether the vaccine is going to be received in Africa. We were the last continents receiving the vaccines. So technology transfer is one of the main points, and that will help the African continent to depend on itself and to have localization of our vaccines in Africa. So we need to move from having a superficial transfer, just having equipment available, maybe the latest equipment in sites, but we don't have the process, we don't have the know-how. So by starting with technology transfer programs, this is going to shift from just being superficial, having the machines, which is insufficient, without the product and the process. So we will move from superficial transfer to deep empowerment over the facilities in Africa, having the correct equipment in place, having our employees in these manufacturing facilities trained, well aware of the knowledge, having a local network for the supply chain, which is going to be increased when we are going to increase our production facilities. So we are going to have more supply chain network locally, and also having always a continuous improvement process to improve our knowledge in vaccine manufacturing. And this will take me to how can we imagine the role or the importance of the technology transfer. So let's say the first part is the core operation, or let's say the facility or the factory level. Then moving larger to the training of the employees and adapting the R&D to design, not only production, but the design. To, as I said, increasing our local ecosystem, the global ecosystem, the global economy, by enriching the local supply chain network. So I will talk about each one in details. The first one is the facility or the production levels. So by having the process knowledge, this will allow me to all the manufacturers to start manufacturing, to start producing, okay, with their available equipment. And this will help in reducing the waste and the machine downtimes, because maybe we have a lot of machines, we have a lot of lines, but we don't have the process or the product or the know-how how to use them. As well, this will enrich the human capital, because when I have a technology transfer, as we are going to see in the next phases, that a main or a core part of the technology transfer is the training of the employees. So this is going to enrich also our human capital. And by enriching our human capital, by having the process in place, this will take us and shift the process from just copying it, having the know-how, to think how to design later on and have the research and design in our continent. So moving from just complying phase A, then this will be done through phases for sure. So just moving from the first phase, which is complying to the regulatory requirements, knowing the process knowledge and so on, then adapting to the process. And the last phase is going to be the shift. The shift is going to be from how to make a product to how to design a product that can be a new product developed locally. And as I said, the last or the larger step is broadening the industrial ecosystem, upgrading our supplier networks, and attracting investments. Maybe when we secure our continent with the needed production for the vaccines manufacturing, maybe this will also help us to attract more and more investments. A very important thing in the technology transfer is to know the scope of your organization. Which organization are you? Are you an originating site? Are you a receiving site? Are you a very small scale product production for R&D? Are you a CMO or just partnering with a tech transfer hub? So you should, from the beginning, detect which organization are you. And this, after knowing the role or the importance of the technology transfer, will take us to, we need to know more about the elements of the technology transfer, about what are the types of the technology transfer and what are the business considerations. So Eman, as a receiving unit, can you tell us more about the types of the technology transfer and what are the business considerations that you take into consideration?
Okay. So, Ashraf, normally when we go for vaccine manufacturing as a receiving site, we have what is called the 4 ground rules for vaccine development and manufacturing. So, first, we need to understand that to develop or manufacture a vaccine, this is a long journey and a complex process, will take years. And to have a support of technology transfer will completely make difference in introducing a new product or vaccine to the market. When we could talk about the 4 ground rules of the vaccine, we are looking for a vaccine which is produced in large scale. So because we need a capacity, huge capacity for the continent, and also we need an inexpensive vaccine. So the process cost must be kept down, and we need a fast entry and the development for the vaccine to the market, and to make sure that this product is safe, and for not only for the subject but also for the operators or the employee working for the vaccine manufacturing. So this is the ground rules. So when any company looking for a tech transfer, they should consider this. And that's why we talk about the business consideration. We need to talk about the business considerations for the technology transfer, which should include increase. When we look for the tech transfer, we are looking to increase our speed to the market. We are looking to produce vaccine with lower cost and to improve our capacity and the internal resources constraints and improve our customer service, and of course to meet the compliance requirement for the country. Okay. So each organization or receiving unit should have its own technology transfer SOP or procedure embodying a robust plan. This robust plan should concentrate on having clear and defined goals and the scope and the steps involved with rules and responsibility from both parties, the sending unit and the receiving unit. And also, the receiving unit should utilize a template for documentation to ensure that every item will be fulfilled. We should increase the level of control on the process and on the quality, on the document, even on the communication and the decision making through all over the tech transfer life cycle. And we should have a process and the facility map and the feasibility for what we are looking for. We should increase the quality because, as we mentioned, we are looking for a safe and the high quality product. And also we should make sure that all analytical transfer and the process development are transferred to our site. So the receiving unit should have its own technology transfer standard operating procedure to go through a technology transfer before we start. So this technology transfer SOP should cover the essential elements for technology transfer, which before we start any technology transfer project, we should have a due diligence between the two parties. Technology transfer is a very complex process, so we need both parties, the sending unit and the receiving unit, to enter to perform a very careful and detailed due diligence and gap analysis to make sure this is the right partner to go for technology transfer. Then we should have a very good planning. Both parties must work together to have a clear plan, detailed plan, and the clear goals for each phase and to ensure the success of the project. We should have a documentation for every step in the technology transfer, detailed one, accurate documentation to ensure that all knowledge and information is transferred from the sending unit to the receiving unit. And we also need to consider the risk management. All over the process of tech transfer, we will have potential risk. We should identify and evaluate, mitigate as when possible, and also put mitigation to overcome these risks. The expertise, the receiving team must have the necessary information from the sending unit to be able to do the process, a comparable process to the sending unit. And finally is partnership. All parties involved in this work are partner and should work together in a productive way to have a successful technology transfer. This is the main elements to have a technology transfer. During this phase, we need and before we establish an agreement, we need to focus in 4 main areas as considerations for the technology transfer. So the sending and the receiving unit will focus on the equipment. It's unlikely to find a receiving unit and the sending unit who are typically have the same equipment. So it will be a challenge how we need to identify the difference and how we will handle this difference. Or this difference will affect the process. What is the change needed in the process and how we can validate it and evaluate it. And also for the raw materials. Normally, the sending unit will have their own suppliers, they have their materials and the consumable, but the sending units need also to understand what is available at the receiving side. Can they supply the same consumables or materials? Some of them are not accepted locally at their side by the regulations or the regulatory authorities. Do they need to change any of the material, and how much this change will affect the process? And even they should be sure of a safe and secure supply of the raw materials and the consumable during the agreement. And also the process and analytical methods. This area is very important because both parties need to evaluate the process and the analytical method, identify the difference and what kind of training and experience need to be shared so the receiving unit successfully can do the process and make the analytical methods. And finally, and the most important, is the quality and regulatory considerations, because the quality measures and the regulation requirement will, by the end, evaluate the whole project. We should fulfill both of them to have our project successfully implemented and approved by the country. Okay. So now we are going to talk about what is called the life cycle approach for planning and implementing tech transfer. We agreed that we have some essential elements should be there, and also what is the areas we are going to focus about. But what is the life cycle of the technology transfer? Technology transfer life cycle is a stage gate structure developed by Yehuda and Romans in 2005 for developing a systematic approach for planning and managing a technology transfer. It's a holistic view for the technology transfer, starting from the conception phase to the conclusion phase. And it's based in the gate structure. Each stage will have a gate, and this gates, we cannot move to the next stage until we have this gate open. And this gate, the decision making at this gate will depend on the information collected during the phase. So the gate or controlling point is at the entrance to each stage using the information generated from each stage. And based on this evaluation, you will take decision if to go forward or to kill the project or to put it in hold or to recycle the previous stage. Normally, it's a 6-stage process covering the 4 main phases of the 6-stage life cycle, covering the 4 main steps or phases of the technology transfer. The first 3 stages is technology transfer phase where you identify your technology and have select your supplier or your partner and have the agreement for technology transfer. Then you will go for the normal phases for the technology transfer, including the planning, preparation, and also hello. Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so we then you will move for the next stages, which is the implementation and the execution and the assessment of the technology transfer, and also it defines the gate for the next phase. What is the gate to go to the next stage? So Ashraf, now after we understand the full life cycle for technology transfer from the beginning to the end with the stages, I think now every organization with the help of the sending unit should have a framework for the technology transfer. How do you think what do you think the receiving unit should expect from the sending unit within this frame or tech transfer frame?
Okay, so usually the framework is divided either between some operational foundations or execution oversight. For the operational foundation, so it should have the receiving unit should have the process knowledge. We should know the supply chain management in terms of the raw materials, all packaging materials, all materials needed, the supply chain overfront for the suppliers and so on. Having always regulatory alignment, we should comply with the regulations and putting all the documentations in place. On the same time, the execution or the oversight, we should have a gap analysis between both sides, risk-based. Okay, and then the whole team should be regulated of both sides through a project management and having a plan, a very high-level plan at the beginning, and then a detailed plan for the execution phases. And this is going to take us to the stages of the technology transfer process as a whole. Taking into consideration that the first part is preliminary activities, and then we have the overall technology transfer process in the middle, and the end, the assessment or the completion phase. So if we started in the preliminary decision, so you should define your scope at the beginning. What is the scope of the technology transfer? You should choose your receiving unit. You should check if the facilities that you want to have this technology transfer project with have, as I said, a high-level plan at the beginning determined, and having like initial project team that you are going to communicate with in the beginning. When you do this preliminary decision, this is going to take you to a part which is whether you are going to decide to complete or to proceed to the next stages or not. If you are going to proceed, then you are going to have the initial feasibility, which is the official tech transfer teams. We're going to start meeting together. We're going to start assessing the gaps between the sending unit and the receiving unit in terms of the facility itself, the equipment, the design, the personnel, all of these. This feasibility is going to have take us to a clear tech transfer agreement together, the sending and the receiving unit, and have a tech transfer plan, what to do and when is our deadlines. So after the assessment, the receiving unit should start preparing, should start being ready to receive the process and to receive the data. So after receiving the process, is going to have the training, is going to get the facility ready, the equipment installed, validated, process qualified, and so on, to start and to be ready for the transfer. Then the last step in this one is going to be the transfer itself, the commissioning, the qualification, the validation runs. And before the validation runs, we should make sure that all the CAPAs, all the points that was in the assessment is closed, and we have identified our root cause and closed it properly, not to face any problems during the validation runs. By the end of the validation runs, so at the end, I should have a validation report and a final tech transfer report between the sending unit and the receiving unit. So this is divided into 4 main steps. I have explained them, but the first step is the pre-transfer evaluation and preparation, as I said, identifying the need of the transfer, setting the project team, communication with both, and evaluating the process. And then the planning. Now, the plan is very important because it should identify the deliverables that we want. It should identify the roles and the responsibilities of each, our success criteria that we are going to measure by the end of the process, and also taking into consideration the training of the teams. Okay, step 3 is the execution itself of the tech transfer. Okay, either by closing the gaps that was done in the assessment, and the tech transfer and validation batches itself, the tech transfer runs itself is in the step 3. The last step, as I said, it is the assessment of the whole project, whether it was succeeded or not, depending on the predefined criteria that we have set. So, Eman, can you please, as a receiving unit, tell us how can we prepare and what should we put in a plan?
Okay, Ashraf, as you explain about the phases of the technology transfer, let me highlight that the planning phase or the preparation phase is the most important phase in the technology transfer because it affects the overall timelines and the execution of the project. So during the development of the technology transfer, we are trying to integrate all the actions needed with the timelines of the project, and of course also the resources needed for the project. So the planning phase is integration phase for all the data collected to have a detailed technology transfer plan. This plan should include the following elements: strategic overview about the scope and the goal of our project, also a success criteria, how we will evaluate our project, experimental outline, training requirement for the receiving unit, a validation approach, how we will validate every step executed during the project, technical description for every step we are going during the project, and the gates, as we agreed, every step or stage should have a gate to go to the next step. How these gates we need to describe with the timeline and description, and also the main part, which is the milestones and the deliverables for every step. So first, during the preparation and before we do the preparation and do the plan, we need first to have the team of the technology transfer, and this is a very important part because this is, as you can see, this is an example for a tech transfer team. It's a collaboration between 2 parties, between the sending unit and the receiving unit. So on the head, we have a technology transfer sponsors, and these are people from both parties, also the sending unit and the receiving unit. They are responsible for the approving of the plans, the reports, for assigning resources for the project, and to set the priorities for the project. And also we have the technology transfer leading or steering committee. It's more technical, not a strategic management. It's a technical management from the sending unit and the receiving unit. They assign the technical leads we have the tasks, define the scope, and approve the detailed plans or technical plans. And we have the project manager from both sides also. This is the liaison between the 2 parties. He is working for the technology transfer plan, construction, and the maintaining during the maintenance during the whole project lifetime. And then we have, as you can see, a mirror image teams from the sending unit and receiving unit. So we have the project manager, and also we have what is called the process lead and the analytical lead. We have one from the sending unit and another one from the receiving unit. And also for the team members, we will involve all the departments, the supply chain, the quality, the regulatory, process and analytical people, and also we will have a mirror image teams from the sending unit to the and the receiving unit to collaborate at their point or their area of collaboration. As you can see, the project team have main responsibility. This team should understand and be committed to their roles and responsibility, should have enough expertise and the qualification in the subject matter they are receiving at the project, and also they should communicate and collaborate with each other to have a successful project, and should be committed to the timelines and the timely delivery of their predefined task in the process. So we have the sending team and receiving team should have a collaboration. The team members should be drawn from the members of the relevant disciplines for both the sending unit and the receiving unit. The team members should have enough qualifications, necessary qualification and experience to manage their role in the technology transfer project. We have some critical drives for the functional team. Let's understand that this are two different teams from two different facilities and two different cultures. So they should have a relationship management. They should start to establish relationship, manage this relationship, and maintain it. They should become a team participation. They should have open communication, start to collaborate with each other. They should have action tracking, manage and track actions of the team till they close the technology transfer project. And they should track their performance all over the project. How they can do this? This can be done using a progress matrix. On-time milestone tracking, percentage of documents they done, percentage of training completed. They should have a progress matrix to evaluate their job. This is the first point to have the project team, and then we should have a well-established management information flow. During the technology transfer, both sending unit and receiving unit will receive a lot of information, especially from sending unit to receiving unit. So we should have a way to manage the information flow and make sure it's accurate and secured. So we should define how we will receive the document. So do we use assured servers? What kind of version control we will use? Should we have only single point of contact? We need to design this information flow and also to design how we preserve the integrity of the technical information during the technology transfer, because we will receive a technology transfer package, but during the process, a lot of changes may happen, and so we need to control this change. I think we will talk later about this point, the change management. Finally, we need to register and report every step and every action we do. So we need to have different kind of documents that allow us to register what we do. So we could have a data register used for troubleshooting. So during the project, anytime we will have some troubleshooting, we should register it and evaluate to use it in the future as a reference. And also decision registers, we should have decision registers and the change, as we mentioned. And finally, as we mentioned before, we should have gating reports. After finishing each gate and the step, we should have a report, summarize and capture all the findings and the challenges and the outcome of every gate and phase. This is the registration part. But now we need to go deeply about the role and responsibilities about the sending unit and receiving unit, because we aligned in the team and we have how we will manage our information and the flow of information. Now I need to understand from your side, as a receiving unit, what I should expect from your side. What will be the responsibility of the sending unit, and also what you will share with me, what kind of information I will receive from your side.
Okay. So before mentioning that, there are some key elements that is needed to ensure that we have a successful technology transfer process complying to the guidelines and the regulations. So it's very important to ensure about that, because this is the core of the process of technology transfer, to have the technical gap assessment done, to have the qualified team members and expert subject matters experts from both sides, to have the process knowledge and the know-how from the sending unit, and to have a change management available in the receiving side as well. So the main responsibilities of the sending unit should have the necessary information and the knowledge that is related to the process that can be provided to the receiving unit, and should support the receiving unit with all of these documents, should support them in even the technical gap assessment, giving them the deliverables, and during the validation phase, also should support in the troubleshooting of the process as well. Okay. Regarding also not only the process-wise, but as well the analytical method-wise. So we have two packages, one for the QC and one for the production. For the QC, they should provide the method-specific training, give them the testing methods that they want, that is needed. What are the specifications needed, the design, the sampling methods, the acceptance criteria, validation reports, details of the equipment needed, the reference samples, and they should the sending unit should review and approve the transfer reports as well. So the packages, as I said, is going to be divided into more than one part. The first package is going to be the process information to the production team. What is the batch size? What is the batch duration? What is the sampling plan? The in-process controls, the critical process parameters, the critical quality attributes, the hold times, everything related to the manufacturing process. And as well, another package for the quality. The quality, mentioning the critical quality attributes and the acceptance criteria, the release specs, the product format, the product strengths, the packaging, what is it a vial, PFS, everything related to the product storage container, the shelf life, what to put on the label, and also the stability studies. Also, I should provide the receiving unit material information. Who is the manufacturer for the material, the manufacturer, the catalog number. Try to uniform everything in the process in order to have a successful technology transfer and not to have main gaps that should be identified. As well, another pack is the equipment information, the equipment details, the manufacturer, the model number, the calibration detail, the calibration of the equipment, the maintenance needed. So all of these details should be shared. And also there's a part, the documented information, the SOPs, the studies, the reports, the studies, either the process stability studies or the validation reports, the change history that's relevant to the product. And the most important thing is to provide the training for the receiving unit. The training could be classroom training by the sending unit. So the sending unit will go to the receiving unit site and give the training, or the receiving unit is going to just read the SOPs sent by the sending unit, or on-job training in the sending unit site. So the receiving unit could come to the sending unit site and have the on-job training. And the effectiveness of this training should be measured, because it is very important to make sure that the receiving unit is well trained about the process. Let's move to now, after I gave you the knowledge, we knew the main responsibilities of the sending units, and we knew the packages that I will be giving to the receiving unit. So now, Eman, please tell us, what is your responsibilities after receiving the documents and the know-how?
Okay, Ashraf, you mentioned that the receiving unit will receive a lot of documents, but by the end we have 3 focus areas or scope to go deliverables we should focus on. The first one is training operators, the training part. Second part is generation of generating the process operation, all the document related to the process, and finally the production, the actual production of a comparable product based on the received information from your side and the training we received. So, based on the information received, first, we will focus on the process itself, to design the process, to have a process description, process flow, or process diagram, to set up the purpose of this, a description, what we are going to do, what we are going to produce, and how we will do the analytical, to set the critical parameters, the hold times, the in-process control, to design a batch record and forms to be used during the manufacturing, and to have all the SOPs, the standard operating procedures related to the process and the analysis in place, and also the equipment operation and the maintenance after we understand from your side what kind of equipment we are going to use and what is the maintenance need for each one of them. So the receiving team will also focus on the process, as I mentioned, with the description, the procedures, the batch record, and then we will focus on the equipment. We will have a bill of equipment, a list of equipment with relevant validation and maintenance materials, a bill of materials, list of each materials we are going to use, and the quality of these materials. We should have a sampling plan and the specification for both the materials we are using and we are going to use in the production and the product we are going to produce at our site. So we will focus to have a full information about the equipment, material, specifications for the materials, and the sampling plan. So you mentioned also the training, and the training is very important. We need to be sure that all our operators are well trained and now qualified to do the process. So we will have a training plan based on all the procedures and the items need to be trained on. Evaluation criteria for the operators. We will go for resources allocation to do the training for our operators at our site and even at your site if needed. And we need to be sure that any person will go for the production of the items will be qualified, evaluated, and approved to do each process. And we will have all the documentation and the records that prove our evidence that we all have the receiving, we received the training and we are evaluated to do. The training process is very important, so the sending unit will have to review and approve all this design and the approval to approve the evaluation criteria and to review the qualification we did for all our employees. After we have the training and all the materials, equipment, qualifications, and the maintenance on site, we are going to do what is called the visibility runs or engineering batch our sites. We have we have the process, we have the trained personnel, but you know, when you are going to introduce a new process at a new facility, of course, there will be some changes at our side different from the sending unit. So we need to do some adaptation for the process, and we need to understand how much this adaptation could affect the process. And we need to understand how much it affects the process, we need to do a verification. This verification will be done in two ways, a small scale verification and the large scale verification. We will do some small scale batches for what we call the feasibility runs to understand if the process performance affected or not. The consistency of the process is okay or not. And once we are sure from the small scale verification, we'll go for the full scale verification to make sure that this changes or adapted process is not affected and comparable to the process at the sending unit site. Okay, so Ashraf, this verification we talked about will depend on identifying if there is a gap between the sending unit and the receiving unit. This gap will be identified mainly by the sending unit. How you as a sending unit will go to identify this technical gap? what is the procedure and what we are going to do to identify.
Okay, so first of all, during the process of the tech transfer, the receiving unit should identify, after receiving the documents, should identify if there's any differences in the facility or the system or the receiving unit capabilities. And then the receiving unit should communicate this with the sending unit and say that, okay, these are the points that we found that they are different from our facility to your facility, from our utilities to your utilities, and so on. And then they should reach together to, let's say, a kind of CAPA or a risk assessment to mitigate these problems, and then assess the readiness of the facility. There's a very important thing is to identify or to understand the scope that the receiving unit wants from the sending unit. For example, if we are targeting the fill and finish technology transfer, then I don't need to assess the, for example, the upstream and the downstream areas. I'm just going to assess the fill and finish areas. So this is very important, and any high-level changes that is available from the sending unit to the receiving unit should be mentioned clearly in the change management that's going to be open for this process. The technical gap assessment can be done through two phases. The first thing, something called the facility fit assessment. So we are assessing the facility. The second part is the process gap assessment. We are going to check if the process or any gaps for the process. So, Eman, please tell us the facility fit assessment, how should it be done, and give us examples of facility fit assessments, please.
So, Ashraf, this is the very, very early stage of having a technology transfer, because as we mentioned, when one sending unit or receiving unit is looking for a technology transfer, they need at the beginning understand if this is feasible project or not. So the facility fitness assessment is a very, very, very important step, because it will define the feasibility of the project or not. It involves the evaluating the suitability to use the receiving side to do the manufacturing process transferred from the sending side. It evaluates and it decides the feasibility of the process through a very high level initial facility fit assessment. Okay, so we are going to identify the measured gaps and if we can go forward or not. It's a document, and this document at the beginning, the initial, the high level one, will only look for the site fit evaluation, the scale, the process step fit, and the major equipment list at the receiving site, and the major process control Z. Then after that, we are going to do some kind of comparing process. So you can see we will define the parameter and mention what the sending unit have and what the receiving unit have, and if there is a gap or not, and if this identified gap is accepted or not accepted. At some points, if we have a major gap, we could skip the initial facility and go direct to the detailed facility fitness assessment, which is part of the preparation phase, where we are at this detailed facility fitness, we go deeply at every point, every equipment, and ensure that it is suitable to be used during the technology transfer process. So at this point, we use not only detailing the gap, but also to make a risk assessment for this gap. So we will identify the gap between the sending unit and the receiving unit, identifying the failure point between this point, and identify how this difference will affect our process, and then identify how the risk level of this difference between the two units, and identify some mitigation to be done to reduce the risk or to overcome this risk, and re-evaluate or reassess the risk after having this mitigation to understand if now we can go forward with the process or not. So it's a typical risk assessment process, but it's concerned to the gaps identified during this assessment phase. So, for example, let me give a simple example here. The sending unit, I will use a simpler one, is having, for example, a stainless steel bioreactors, but the receiving unit is using the single-use bioreactor. Yes, there is a gap or not. Now we have a gap. Is this gap should potentially affect the process? Yes. What is this level? It's a high because it's a major change. So we need to identify the mitigations. Now we are going to do some studies about we will do the validation studies, the extractable and eligible studies to make sure that using the single-use bags will not affect the product, the quality of the product or the consistency of the process. And then we re-evaluate the risk so we can find it will be accepted if all these studies pass and approved by both the sending unit and the receiving unit. So we identified the gap and evaluated 2 times before we do the mitigation or the recommendation and after we did all the needed mitigation till we find it as an accepted level risk. After we do the facility fit assessment for every part of the receiving unit against what we have as the sending unit had, we should have a report which summarizes the finding of this assessment. This report typically will include the following elements: summary of all critical process parameters for the transferred process, evaluation to the recipient site and identifying if there is any gap, and evaluating the capacities, the utilities, the facility layout, everything related to the receiving site. And then a list of identified gaps between the receiving unit and the sending unit and a plan addressing all this identified gap, what is the needed action to be done or the CAPA will be done, and the timelines to do all these actions. As I mentioned, this plan also will include the timelines to overcome or to introduce the CAPA we agreed on as a sending unit and the receiving unit. And this report will include the risk assessment, as I mentioned, every identified gap, how we will mitigate, and the risk level for each point. So this facility fitness assessment will consider a very, very important tool or a cornerstone for having a technology transfer plan, timelines, and action to be done during the whole project. But this fit as a following this, the recommendation outlined, the initial facility record will decrease the risk level and also highlights all the quality issues, safety concerns during the technology transfer process to ensure a smooth and successful transfer of the manufacturing process. This technology transfer is focusing only on the facility, equipment, and the materials, but we need to go deeply related to the process itself. So we will evaluate a GMP facility, but also we need to have another tool that will focus on the process itself we are going to receive from the sending unit. What kind of an assessment we can do for the process itself, Ashraf?
Yes. So after finishing the gap assessment that is related to the facility and check that the facility is fit for the technology transfer, now it's time to check if there's any process gaps. Okay, so the process gap, as we said, is done between the sending unit and the receiving unit. We should have a targeted scope for the process. We should have a method that is performed based on the information received from the sending unit and compared against what the receiving unit have in the facility. Okay, we should review. The team will identify any differences of this process and mention it to the sending unit and start putting the risk response and the mitigation actions that is needed to make this process accepted and can be done in the receiving unit facility. And this is an ongoing cycle that is must be revised and updated over the whole process of the technology transfer process. What is examples of the things that to be compared for the process? For example, the batch size and the batch scale, the dosage form, the kind of the dosage form, the method used if it is manual or it's an automated process, the batch duration, what is the batch duration, and we should have the critical process parameters set, including the set points, the targets, and the ranges. As well, the in-process and the release testing acceptance criteria, the formulation, the materials manufacturers, the shelf life, the storage condition, the specifications, and any hold time or any duration for the steps throughout the process of the manufacturing. This is a simple example, a real-life example, and this is done for receiving unit, done this process gap assessment. So you just mention simply what is the stage, what is the category that you are looking. Is a parameter, is it a material, is it a sampling point, and you should mention what is the sending unit providing, and as a receiving unit, what do you have, and is there differences? Yes, there is differences. No, there is no differences. If yes, there is difference, then you should put a risk assessment here to assess the risk level. What is the impact, okay, to the process? What is the impact to the quality? And how can we mitigate? So you should put actions, mitigation actions, and then assess the risk level after mitigation, if it is acceptable or not. This whole process should be done from using a change management system, because it is very important to document any changes that is happening throughout the process for traceability and for data integrity. So for using the change management system is going to help us to have a product life cycle. So the first step is assessing the change that is proposed. This is the first step. The second step is comparing the proposed change versus the market authorization that is already available with the sending unit. Then this proposed change should be evaluated by expert team, okay, who is going to mention or to ensure that this change is technically justified. And then the last step is evaluating the implementation of this change control, and this is all should be documented in one record form throughout the whole process. The last part of the technology transfer, let me summarize it quickly. We have identified the teams, we have identified the framework. The sending unit now did the facility fit assessment and the process gap assessment, and then the sending unit gave the receiving unit all the documents, all the packages, everything is available in the sending unit and the receiving unit side. We did the validation batches. Now it's time to check the KPIs against the success criteria that we have put at the beginning, the lessons learned, and then let's get up with a summary and what are the challenges for the technology transfer. So please, Eman, can you tell us what are the KPIs that should be available during the technology transfer process?
So we need to have some KPIs just to correlate between the successful technology transfer outcomes across the whole process. So one of the main KPIs is right from the first time. So because this is reflected that the people are well trained, the documents are okay, everybody have a good understanding for the tech transfer, especially the protocols and reports. So if the people can do the process right from the first time, everything in place and everything is qualified and okay to go. Also, the analytical method transfer readiness is very important. the timeline adherence, if we are complying with the timelines we already established at the beginning of our plan for tech transfer, and the deviation rates. Did we have a lot of deviation during the execution of technology transfer, or it was minor? So number of deviation or deviation rate also reflects the understanding of the process of the receiving unit. And also the technology transfer protocol closure. We will have this protocol starting from the beginning, ending by closing the project. So if we close the technology transfer protocol and fulfill all the requirement for this is also an indication, a good KPI that we are working in a good manner for this project. That's the change control closure, because also we, as you mentioned, we have a lot of changes and we need to know how to manage it. Managing the change is very important KPI because it will affect the performance of the project. The gap closures, we already have the gap assessment. We identified our mitigations and cover. If we close all of them, also this is considered a success factor for the technology transfer project. And also the team performance index, we will measure our team engagement and their performance all over the project. So also this is will be considered a very important factor to the successful of the project. And finally, of course, is the budget. Did we adhere to the initially defined or allocated budget, or there were some deviation in the expected budget for the project? All of these are some expected KPIs should be considered during evaluation of the project. Also, we should have what is called a monitor progress and lesson learned. To identify these KPIs, we need to monitor the progress of the project all over the project timeline. The percentage of completion, if we complete every phase, did we complete the full phase, 90% of it or more? The end of phase evaluation, as we mentioned, we will have the gate and we have a report after finishing each phase or step, and this report should evaluate what we did during this phase and what was the lesson learned during the phase. We should have a regular evaluation like monthly or quarterly assessment for the project execution and the performance of the team. We should have reviews, we should identify, should have final report insights. All of this should be considered a lesson learned for the organization itself. So one organization may have different technology transfer project, and they should learn from each project how to have better performance from coming project to the same organization. This is one, let me say that we are now going to summarize what we mentioned during the whole session, because this is a plan, a timeline phases, technology transfer phases, including the timeline, covering the different phases of the technology transfer. As you can see, Ashraf, I will start with, we already mentioned that we will have what's called the pre-technology transfer phase, and we talked about it, about the feasibility of the project, but the important phase, as I mentioned before, is the preparation phase. This is this phase where we will identify our scope, our budget, and also we will do the kick-off meeting for our project. We will receive the knowledge package. We have the gap analysis, and we have the detailed technology transfer plan. This is the first phase and one of the most important, or the most important phase for the project. Then yes. It will be followed by the readiness. I think you can talk with us about the readiness.
Yes. The readiness is the second phase. In the readiness, we are talking about the facility, the utilities, the process, the equipment, as we mentioned. Make sure that the quality control equipment, the process, the qualification of the quality control is available, the analytical tech transfer method, the training for the QC, the training for the manufacturing staff as well. So this phase, the second phase, the readiness phase, is, as we said, done by the gap assessment, either the facility fit assessment or the process fit assessment. And this phase is going to take us to the third phase, which is the execution phase.
So after we are sure that the facility is already ready for the readiness is done, the planning, the good planning is done. Now we are ready to do the execution. We have a qualified the analytical method and we need to qualify the process itself. So we are going for the execution. We are going to do our feasibility batches or our engineering batch, and then we go for the process validation batch. The analysis of the batch is produced, and to start to have the protocols filled, to have sampling and the testing for the batches performed at the facility. So at this phase, this is the practical execution after all the planning and the readiness phases we already done before we start this phase. Then we are going to the last phase, Ashraf.
Yes, this is the completion phase, as we mentioned, and the completion phase of the technology transfer usually is having the regulatory dossier prepared for submission, having the project closure, the final report of the technology transfer available and issued and approved from both sides, from the sending unit and from the receiving unit. Once we have this kind of report, so then we can say that we have a full technology transfer process that is fulfilled.
Yes, Ashraf. This is also a summary for all the different type of documents, essential documents we will have, starting from the tech transfer master plan at the preparation phase to the knowledge transfer package, and then to the gap analysis, risk assessment, mitigation plan, and the tech transfer master report after we finished all the action. So this is just a summarization for all the documents that we talked about before during our session. This is like a collection for different type of documents you need to have, or essential documents you need to have during the implementation of any technology transfer project. Ashraf, after we talked about all of this, we need also to highlight that technology, we highlighted it's a complex process, but also there is a lot of challenge you will face during the implementation. Can you tell us more about this challenge, please?
Yes, for sure. Having a technology transfer is not that smooth. As we said, there are some challenges that's going to face anyone having this process. So we are going to mention them briefly to take care during any tech transfer process that you are having on your sites. So the first challenge is the regulatory misalignment. Maybe there is different regulations between local and international frameworks. So you should take into consideration the international framework as well when you are complying to regulations. A lot of the time you're going to have infrastructure gaps, maybe between the sending and the receiving. Maybe the receiving unit infrastructure is like a bit old, so you should do this gap facility fit assessment to know the infrastructure, is it well fitting for such a technology transfer or not. And sometimes you have intellectual property concerns. There's always fear for giving the know-how from a sending unit to the receiving unit. So this is a challenge because it limits the depth and it limits the effectiveness of the knowledge that could be shared between the sending and the receiving unit. The last challenge is the skilled personnel shortage. Maybe there is a shortage in the skilled personnel. We don't have a lot of staff that is well trained or well aware of the vaccine manufacturing. And that's why, as we said, these are the initiatives that is done either by in Africa by WHO or by the Africa CDC, as well as KEMRI-Wellcome Trust for having such trainings to allow our staff to be skilled and to be ready for any kind of manufacturing for vaccines in Africa. So that's all for today's presentation. Hope you enjoyed it and it was beneficial for all of you. We will leave you again with the questions, the 5 small quiz questions that we have put in the chat. Please answer them again to check the difference, how we started, and after the presentation, how we ended. Thank you very much, all of you, and see you.
Yes, thanks Ashraf and Eman for such a wonderful presentation. It's really insightful, and we because Africa is currently undergoing a revolution in vaccine manufacturing, and we hope it will be insightful to every attendee as we have a goal for self-sufficiency on the African continent in terms of vaccines and biologics. So we'll go direct to the Q&A session, but we only have 2 minutes, so we'll limit to the 2 questions that are on the chat. This from Hadris. As a PhD trainee in vaccinology aiming to build capacity back home, I'm concerned about the great scale of existing technological disparities across the continent. How realistic is it for countries just entering this space to meaningfully participate within the next decade? All two, and what concrete steps are being taken to ensure equitable and not concentrated growth in manufacturing research capacity? The second one, you can combine these two. I may have missed these two, but who is the lead stakeholder in this process responsible for driving this process while the others participate according to their designated roles? Ask this to get an understanding what it takes to get started. Is it governments, researchers, biotech companies, or funders? Thank you. Respond to this kindly.
Okay, Eman, I think there's a question about the stakeholders process.
Okay.
Whether it is participating according to design rules or just something other than that, and what it takes to get started related to the government, the researchers, the biotechs.
Stakeholders in this process, but I think this maybe, but who is the lead stakeholder in this process responsible for this? So for the stakeholder question, I think is the main lead for the process. As I mentioned, we will have 3 levels. We may consider the lead levels for the process. The first one is the project sponsor. This is a lead or a stakeholder who leads the project itself. So this one is responsible for all strategic decision, for approving the plans, for allocating the resource, for the decision to go forward or to stop or whatever. So internally, inside any organization, we should have a person from the sending unit and the receiving unit. This person is the sponsor, called the project sponsor. And under this person, there will be what is called the steering committee. It's a technical committee which is responsible for reporting to the sponsor. So any technical decisions will be the responsibility of the stakeholder will be the steering committee, but the overall stakeholder will be the project sponsor, who will be responsible for taking the most important decisions here. So he will receive technical reporting, financial reporting, resources reporting, and then he takes the decision based on what he already has. This person is present in both sending unit and receiving unit.
Yes, and for, let me say, for the first question, she was saying that as a PhD trainee, how is there a chance really to have such technology transfer in our countries, and is it something meaningful and happening or not, and how is it happening? Yes, it is something meaningful, and let me say, as Eman mentioned in her first part of the presentation, that the governments and we have initiatives like the WHO initiative in Afrigen to start the technology transfer program for the mRNA vaccine manufacturing. And this is done through in Afrigen, and they chose local manufacturers all over Africa to start taking this initiative and to start implementation of this tech transfer throughout in Africa. So yes, it is available, and it's real, and it's being implemented.
Thank you, Eman and Ashraf, for answering the questions. Now you can make your closing remarks.
For the closing remarks, I'm really thankful for having this opportunity to talk about the technology transfer, because it's a very important topic that should be discussed, and I hope that we were able to fit through the time, because there's a lot of information, as it's a very complex process. So hope that the attendees got the beneficial information and what they have needed. And for sure, if there are more questions, you can send them in the chat, and we will be happy to answer them. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you all for your time, of course, and thanks Clive and the KEMRI-Wellcome Trust for giving us this opportunity. We enjoyed the session a lot, and we are happy to share our expertise and insights with you all. As Ashraf mentioned, it's a big topic, but we try to give an overview about all the stages and needed items for this technology transfer, because it's a very important topic, and now most of African countries are working for different technology transfer projects. We hope you found this the session informative. Thanks for attendance. Thanks Clive and KEMRI-Wellcome Trust. It was a pleasure for me. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ashraf and Eman. It's been quite insightful. Thank you very much to everyone in this webinar. We could like to hear about your experiences and what else you could like us to discuss in upcoming forums. Before we close, kindly requesting that you take a few minutes to respond to the post-webinar survey posted in the chat. There is a link on the chat. Have a nice day, and looking forward to more engagement with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.